Benny, start it.
Good Lord.
So Sal, what have you thought about like what we're gonna do next week? Like,
Hey everybody, welcome back to Absolutely Marvel in DC. I'm Dylan. That's
no,
Benny.
you don't
That's
take that
Sal,
from me.
and that is
You don't
Hudson.
take that from
And
me.
today,
welcome back to Absolutely. My name is Benny. That is Sal. That is Hudson. That is Dylan. Today we're going to be doing a 4-person review, discussion, analysis of the finale of She-Hulk. Today's episode is brought to you by 3 things. Number 1, G Fuel. If you want to get the energy that we're all packing right here, use the code COMICS at checkout. Get 10% off of your order. If you want to get incredibly comfortable t-shirts, check out Into the AM. Our link is down below. They have a whole new line that has just come out. Dylan got to finally order some shirts in there. He's excited. But we'll tell you the story about how I messed up that deal, and now we've got a permanent deal. Yay! That'll be a behind-the-scenes YouTube membership video, which you can get if you go ahead and sign up for our YouTube memberships. All of that is how you can support this channel and keep it going. Any one of those 3. Now, let's get into the important bits. The She-Hulk finale. For those who are joining us for the first time, we do not go beat by beat. We're going to start with some key points, talk about those, and then go into how this broke the walls down in the MCU finale department. So let's start up with our usual non-full spoiler, just kind of like opinions, and we'll just go around the table. Hudson, what did you think of the finale?
I liked it. It was funny. I was entertained the whole time.
yeah, same. I really liked it. I think this is the culmination of what the show should have been the whole time, and that's cool. I think they nailed it. They stuck the landing.
Yeah, I liked what Hudson said. It was entertaining. Like, I was entertained. It didn't blow my mind, but I did appreciate what they did and the choices they made. I was like, oh, all right.
So I want to let those know, because looking at the overarching like fandom of the MCU, this has gone both ways hard. People either fell in love with this finale, or they are despising it as like a capper on a show they already didn't like.
I haven't seen anything about it.
I'm sure they hated being in it.
Yeah. So this episode picks up where we last left off. She-Hulk raged out, and Dylan and you and I discussed this last week. We found it weird because we didn't know if she actually raged or if she was mildly angry or what exactly had happened. And this episode doesn't answer that question, but it does bring back the point of the entire show. One time, if you misbehave, you're going to be flagged as this rampaging Hulk. That's what Bruce is trying to tell her.
No.
I thought the message was more geared towards like how women are perceived in media as opposed to men.
That's what that
was.
Well,
no, and that's what I get.
It's not like if you're a Hulk, you smash one thing one time. Like, Hulk got to smash Harlem and some South African
right, but the point he
town.
made the line at the very, very beginning that they're going to see you different once you do something Hulk-like.
Right. Exactly.
Which I think is they're making an allegory for women in media. And the way
I think they
treated.
are.
Like, the whole thing kind of combined into one big message, I think.
Yeah, but I love how what's it called? She breaks a TV screen and she's arrested.
Yeah. That I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Hulk smashes a town, and he's an Avenger.
He's an Avenger, yeah.
I was in Harlem a couple weeks ago. Looks the same. They really haven't gotten around to fixing it yet.
Can I just say really quick? I don't know what other. We're never gonna have another chance to say this. It is a damn crime that the Luke Cage show, which took place in Harlem, never addressed that.
About it.
Would have been really cool to have that be an underlying plot point that like an Avenger smashed my town.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That was especially during the time where like that was because the Netflix shows did talk like there was
they talked about him a little bit
about it.
Yeah,
but that was during the time where like we're not really talking about that movie.
Yeah, please
that
no.
movie doesn't exist.
Yeah. Until now. Now
the green guy, her part.
Yeah.
But yeah. No, but otherwise, I mean, I think it was about how it's like if you're a woman and you get out of line, they're gonna throw everything at you.
Right.
And it's like,
well, they kind of imply that when she's laying in bed before she goes to Emil's place, and she literally looks at the screen and says, "This isn't like a redemption arc. I'm not gonna be redeemed. This is just my life being tore apart. Is this what you wanted?" That's when she really starts constantly talking to the camera.
Yeah.
Like we've had those one-off notes, but this is where it's like I almost feel like we were a character in this episode. The way she was talking to us.
It was crazy, and it felt like everything that I have ranted about and gotten so much crap in the comments about is what this show is completely about. Every issue that I have, She-Hulk is addressing Those fans with that certain little I word that apparently is an ableist term if I use it here, but it's not. I'm gonna say it. I was addressing incels, and She-Hulk was addressing incels, and it was awesome. It was really cool to have her just in the show.
You love throwing that word around. I don't think
It's literally they're incels.
No,
they hate women for being women. They're misogynists.
He's right.
Yeah.
That was literally who that group was.
Incel
That
actually has a meaning, even though you're using it as
No, we're not having this argument.
Hold on. Yeah.
In
yeah.
internet culture,
I'll have whatever
incel
argument I
means
want on my goddamn show, Dylan. Anyway, we're not having this argument right now.
It's our show.
Anyway, the point of the point of what she's trying to do is she's trying to bring down the fact that this show, like there is no redemption here. She's just being hammered for smashing a TV, looking angry, hulking out, and now she can't hulk out. Literally, she's just lost everything: the law practice, the band on her ankle, all that kind of stuff. So that brings us to where things get weird, because up to this point, I was expecting just a traditional MCU ending. And that's what I wanted to ask you guys. At this point, I was expecting, okay, so what's going to happen is whoever's been trying to take her blood is going to take her blood and going to succeed in that manner, and then we're going to have a Hulk villain. And I honestly wasn't expecting Emil. I'll give it that. I thought everything he'd been through, he was just going to be the sleazy cult guy. Like that's all I thought he was going to be. What were you guys expecting at this point, though? Were you expecting like an actual villain to show up?
No.
Not really. I wasn't really expecting anything, I don't think, because it was just, this show like sort of put its foot in the sand as like the whatever, like we're just going to do, we're a sitcom, we're going to do whatever we want. So to have like this like big bombastic finale seemed kind of weird and out of place, and turns out the writers agreed, because that's sort of the whole point, which, by the way, very interesting. I mean, we're sort of beating around the bush here. The whole fourth wall thing in this episode.
Well, that's the big moment. That's the drop that happens right next, which is what I wanted to go over. Sure. The whole thing just gets broken down. The whole entire thing.
And I think it's something I wanted to mention is just like I don't know. I haven't seen anything in a while, especially not in the MCU, where we can hear the writers talk through the character they're writing about what they think their show is. It's an interesting perspective that I feel like we don't get, because like we hear people talk about their show in like interviews and stuff. Yeah. And you can hear writers speak on that, but it was interesting to see like Jen basically be a mouthpiece for the writers, which has been a thing like this entire thing, but for her to explicitly say like, well, this is what my show is about, was interesting. That's something we don't see a lot.
I wish that the show did a better job of balancing it, because I feel like I like what happened, and I think that overall everyone's going to be like, I already saw like 6 TikToks that were like, what? Did you see that finale? Let me break it down for you. John Byron, anyway, I feel like...
Byron. That's not his name.
I never read a comic in my life, but...
We're all referencing the same guy, huh?
But I feel like if I feel like this would have been more earned if it was like an underlying thing throughout the show. Like Jen breaking the fourth wall to be like, fart. I'm like, right, yeah, that's fun, and and people being like, what? People still losing their minds over that being like a comic book, pastiche. But it would have been more interesting if it was like she goes, what's going? Every time a trope took place, every time that like a really like, it would have been a way to lampshade some of the bad writing in the show, because I think the show is unfortunately really suffered from a lot of that. But like, it would have been a great way to do that, to be like, why did I say that? Or like, what a weird thing to say, just to kind of like indicate like there's something going on. Yes. So that when we get to the end, it's like, oh man.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I wanted to get.
Planting the seeds of Kevin the whole time.
Yeah.
She's like, is there somebody like in charge of all this doing this? What's happening? And like slowly pay that off the end.
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing about this is I feel like because of some of the stuff that Jen says in this episode, I feel like the writers think that they were doing that.
I think they think that too, but but they didn't.
It wasn't enough, because like there's fourth wall breaks. Like I remember, Sal, earlier on in the season, you were mentioning how like they don't do it like ever. And there is a few episodes where it's really not, like maybe once or not at all in an episode she does it. So it feels like they thought that they were making like a stepping stone each episode to build up to this, but it was fun. Like I really liked it in this episode in a vacuum, but like they didn't build up to it very
No,
well, I guess. It was
right.
all kind of jumping the shark at
No,
one
but it didn't
moment.
feel unearned. I will say, like,
No.
it didn't feel like this came out of left field. Why are you changing the entire dynamic of the show? That did not feel like that. I'm just saying, like, it could have been telegraphed
It's like
better.
she hadn't done it before.
Yes.
She just hadn't done it enough.
Yeah, exactly.
And I completely agree with that because, like, one of the big plot points that I just didn't have any real interest in was the blood plot point.
Right.
Which
Yeah.
came up a couple of
Like, who
times.
cares?
And even here, she even brings up this is just super soldier serum. You're just doing it again. And so I do wish that there had been more seeds planted in here, almost like WandaVision-esque, where it was
Yeah.
like, WandaVision had its normal individual episodes. They played out normal individual plots. But then there would be those little moments where you're like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
feel
when
like
they pull
She-Hulk
back.
could have done that if they had just peppered those in a little bit more or played more into the fourth wall breaks.
Yeah.
Because then you could have had her questioning, like you said, Sal. Hey, this doesn't seem right, or doesn't this feel a little on the nose, or like
Right.
things like that. Like, so I that was my biggest problem with this breakdown happening in this episode. It came out of nowhere. Like, I put the episode on like I always do on the morning of the of Thursday morning, and I'm just doing what I'm doing, and things are happening, and I'm like, okay, so here's a meal. Oh, it's a meal. Meal's gonna be the villain, so that's how we're gonna get a Hulk fight. And then when Bruce fell through the ceiling, I was literally like, what is going on? Like,
And I'd venture to say
Like, what's
Emil
happening?
wasn't even the villain in that sequence. Emil
No.
was very clearly like, oh yeah, I'm here for a check. Like,
Yeah.
he is
Yeah.
not supporting Intelligentsia. He is literally just like, yeah, they paid me to be the speaker. I
Yeah,
do
oh, he
clearly
did the
didn't do
best
the
thing ever.
research. Like, he didn't go, like, if they had started talking about women, he would have been like, what?
Yeah, he was
The-
literally
the
just like,
same speech
are
he
you
does
going for your
everywhere.
goals? Yeah, yeah.
That's just it. I feel like it was the same speech. I feel like he knew what he was doing there, but if you watch the way he was wording everything, nothing would incriminate
Completely
him.
vague.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's completely vague, like,
Yeah.
what are they, platitudes or whatever I think
Yes,
it's referred to
yeah,
as. He's
absolutely.
Just saying things to get you amped up.
Yeah.
Do you feel held back in the world?
Yeah.
It's not like he was like, damn, women.
No, and I thought that was going to be a turn. I was like, oh my God, is Blonsky a closet incel? Like, is he pretending? And then it
Right.
comes out, he's like, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the Abomination. Yeah. Like, no, screw She-Hulk, screw Hulks. And I'm like, oh, okay. No, we're going to go with, no, okay. All right, fine.
So so that's when everything went crazy though. Right? And as soon as it started happening, I knew something was going to happen because she wasn't hulking out or changing or even talking to the cast members. She was literally like, huh? I do want to comment before we go deeper into that though. The pug sequence I found hilarious.
That was
Oh my
great.
god, the whole thing. The whole thing.
Where she's telling him what to say. Yeah, he's like, yeah. I was so mad.
Well, then how easy it was to get him all riled up. He goes, women are bad? I hate them. And then they're like, yeah.
Yeah.
I bet She-Hulk slept with her boss to get the position.
Holy crap.
I bet she did. I was like, oh my god.
Didn't she? Yeah,
Didn't
and it
she
made me
do
really
it?
mad.
Yeah,
Oh, it made
something
me
about
furious.
nepotism.
Well, speaking, talking
couldn't
about the
believe those.
Intelligentsia stuff, I feel like that this episode made me sort of realize the criticism that the problem that I had with it the whole time is it's like it seems very convenient, which I feel like is sort of the point of this whole episode is everything's very convenient.
Completely.
But it still ends up being that way, which is like, you know, what's canon in this episode? Who cares? But
Yep.
it like Intelligentsia, I feel like they just needed a few more passes. It sort of reminded me of the villains in Falcon and Winter Soldier, where it was just it needed a couple needed a bit more time in the oven to really like be a little more realistic.
Yeah.
No, actually, I disagree with that. I feel like because the point of Intelligentsia was it was just supposed to be the angry public, the angry trolls. They don't have any power, authority, or anything.
Right.
No one in that was ex-militia or a villain. All the villains weren't even tied to Intelligentsia.
Yeah,
they
true.
were
But-
just a forum, which is why
What
I think
I'm saying is like it's like why it's like if the implication in the show is that this is a forum dedicated to hating She-Hulk,
Right.
Which why is it called Intelligentsia and like why
Because it's a comic book
why are
reference.
they all in LA seemingly
because it's just
Like, I
it's
feel
just
like
for
if-
fun, you know, just what they want to handle. And they didn't say that they all were in LA. They just said this is where an event.
well, there's
is
a
happening.
whole hell of a lot of them there. I
Yeah.
feel like that like if they were to make because it's obviously an analog for Reddit. That's the writer's view on what Reddit is.
4chan.
If they made it a more direct like comparison where this is a small forum specifically for people in LA who hate She-Hulk, which would
Yes.
make sense because that's where she is. Like that I feel like that would have been a more like that's what I mean by just them like taking a little bit more time to root it in what our actual internet culture is. It's like 4chan Reddit. It's like they're not just one site dedicated to hating one specific thing.
Yeah.
It's bigger than that.
I'd venture to say that it's interesting that they didn't do that approach just because this has been probably like the closest to social media accuracy that we get in an MCU thing. Because in general, it's terrible. It's so bad. They're like, I keep getting these Instagrams. They're so annoying. It's like, who the fuck an Instagram?
Just weird too, because they do that. Like Miss Marvel had literal TikTok in it. So why didn't they just attack a website?
Right?
They had Meg the Stallion dance with what do you call it, She-Hulk at the end, and everyone's enraged. Like, that would never happen. Well, I just got back from TwitchCon, baby, and I watched Master Chief get on stage with Meg the Stallion and twerk on stage. Real life imitating art and back and forth, baby.
But what I'm getting at though is I kind of like the idea that the villain was a nobody, because I feel like that plays into the overall themes of She-Hulk, in which she's just trying to get through the world as a woman who happens to be a lawyer and also happens to be a Hulk.
Right.
And she didn't want to be a superhero. So giving her like a direct villain, or really amping up Intelligentsia to be like, oh, they're this really big the fact that it just turned out to be a guy who hired another guy to get a sex tape.
Right.
Kind of plays into the whole theme of what they're
It
trying
really
to
seemed
do.
like they had like a lab or something though.
Yeah, they did.
I don't know.
I wish
It's
this
just half baked.
I wish that the guy that turned out to be Hulk King wasn't the same guy that like went on that like weird date with her. Like I was like, that guy, like the jerk we're not supposed to like. At least it wasn't the guy that she worked with from her previous firm.
Yeah,
that would have been really bad.
He had his little moment where he's like, yeah, we had a very, very intimate relationship for a long time, and she was insane. I was like, okay, we're getting it all.
Right.
They explained, they used the guy that she formerly dated to at least show that he's super, super rich.
Yeah.
They imply that he is like a top client of the firm. They have to keep him happy. So like, we know that he has the money to bankroll their incel terrorism or whatever they're doing.
Right, exactly. I wish, I don't know why, maybe it's just the fact that it's it's the comic book in me talking, but like realize, like when I'm watching like the two things coalesce where like She-Hulk is heading towards Blonsky's compound and like Pug goes to the Intelligentsia like retreat, and I'm like, this is the same location.
Oh yeah,
like this is the same
Once
location.
he said she's down at the he's down at the lodge. I'm like,
yeah.
Blonsky,
Before that, when they were
right
converging,
there.
and I'm like, oh, they're in like a lodge. This is the same place. The whole thing, the Namaste stuff was all nonsense. It's just an incel camp. It's a bunch of like, everyone here is like a supervillain. And
did you take it as that?
I did for a second. I was like, "Oh man, this is Taskmaster's like supervillain training like place." And it's like I'm building. We're building supervillains by like doing grassroots social media, like hate mongering, and then we'll backdoor them into supervillainy. And I was like, "This would be really cool," and it wasn't. And I'm like, "No, that's fine." But like but hey, would have been a really cool Taskmaster thing. Oh well.
Yeah. So let's move on to the elephant in the room now, the actual fourth wall break, where she breaks down everything that's going on. Yeah. When the guy grabs the serum, turns into like, what honestly reminded me of the Totally Awesome Hulk, the way he looked with his hair. I was oh, they're making a stab at Totally Awesome Hulk with that one.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Like he kind of is the villain, then Emil's kind of the villain, but Emil's just trying to help her. So while Hulk's fighting Emil, which doesn't make sense, to me, I was kind of acknowledging what she was saying. It's just getting sloppy.
Yeah.
Going back to what you had said, Dylan, where it was all convenient. I didn't find Intelligentsia itself convenient, but the fact that all the plot lines were linking together so weirdly convenient before the break, I was like, oh, so the sidekicks, Pug and I can't remember her name, but the Pug and the other guy, Nikki. They conveniently found Intelligentsia, which is conveniently in the lodge for Emil, which is conveniently has Emil as a speaker, which conveniently the Hulk got the message from Pug, which is one of my favorite lines ever. I remained surprisingly calm considering I was calling the Hulk. And he just jumps through. Like, all of it was so convenient.
Yeah.
Also Titania.
And
Titania came
what
through.
a waste of a character. Can I just say, like, Titania, like, all she does is smash through a wall and go, I'm in the scene too.
I'm here now.
I guess that's funny. Like, if it had happened like 2 or 3 more times, I would have been like, that's a joke. Instead, I'm like, you don't know what to do with this character. When everything converges and she goes to the wall, I'm like, that's a joke. But every other time she's in the show is not a joke. She just isn't used properly.
It almost feels like the writers wrote this in like some kind of time chamber where they think there's 18 episodes, but there's only 9. So like all of their beats and like bits feel like more fleshed out to them, but they're actually not in reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she stops it, and I loved the scene where it cuts to the Disney
menu.
Plus, and she jumps out into the other one.
That was
so
straight
fun.
up a comic book moment. Like that was,
Yeah.
I remember vividly Jen Walters like ripping the comic book page and like coming between the panels, and I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
her doing that, I'm like, brah, fucking vo. No, apologies for the blue language, but I was just like, applause that you did it.
did it.
Like just doing that, I'm like, and then she's walking around, and I'm like, these are the hallways I remember seeing in like the behind the scenes when she found
Yeah.
the like when she low key promoted another piece of content on Disney Plus and
Yeah.
went into that like behind the scenes thing. I'm like, this is really good. Like this is cool. This should have been the show.
There's so much like in those sequences. There's a lot of like it's weird, right? Because we live in a world where Disney is a corporation, and like the whole thing is them trying to sell us stuff. But
Yeah.
like also you have to grapple with the fact that like the writers are making fun of Disney and the MCU.
Yep.
But at
Well,
the
and you have
same
to-
time, like it is that still like it's this
Yeah.
weird like collection of thoughts going into it where it's like you're laughing at it and it's fun, but it's just strange. But I think that they did it in a way that it didn't feel pandering.
No.
I think the only criticism I had that was a little pandering and felt a little studio note-y was when she was criticizing how all MCU movies kind of end the same. She didn't get too specific. She sort
All
of
of the
just,
criticisms are like
Yeah.
the fact.
I mean,
that
everything reminded me of a tweet at some point or another, or a Reddit post at some point or another. They just got probably the most prominent criticisms that come up. My favorite was referencing the daddy issues that everyone has.
Yeah, that
Same
one she
daddy,
could get specific because
two daddies, two issues.
Oh man, and that Kevin had the hat. Had
Yeah,
Kevin
I saw the
Feige's hat on.
I saw that on the
Ridiculous.
second watch through because I had to rewatch this one to see
Were you
what
guys
else I could have
expecting when
caught.
she went through for it to be actual Kevin Feige?
No,
Yes, I did.
No,
Okay, I
the
did.
only reason
I did.
I was,
the only
yeah.
reason I wasn't expecting it is I have subtitles on during these just so I don't miss anything.
And it said
Oh, so it
K-E-E
showed
It,
and all
it gave the
That's
abbreviation. She would say Kevin, and it would be in
That
the
sucks.
proper like name. But whenever anybody else said Kevin, it'd be the abbreviation. So I'm like, something's up. He's gonna be a robot, or he won't be real Kevin Feige, or something.
Yeah.
I thought maybe he
I'm glad it
hologrammed the
wasn't
real
real
Kevin
Kevin
Feige
Feige.
down.
What's that?
I'm just glad it was because I don't know if he can act, and I feel like that's like that
The
would have
thing-
been the impetus of okay, now we're just in our own world. here.
That's Disney. Like the fact is,
Yeah.
She-Hulk going behind this, like going on the Disney lot and talking to the writers' room and interacting directly with like the head of the studio is straight up Mickey Mouse talking to Eisner vibes.
Yeah.
That is She-Hulk talking to Stan Lee, Spider-Man like swinging Stan Lee around. Like that is Marvel and Disney. This scene is a perfect marriage of the Marvel Disney acquisition. Is where it's like,
Totally.
because Disney was very familiar and comfortable with the idea of familiarizing you with who's working on this stuff you like and
Yeah, the
making you
creator
feel like
and
you're
the-
part of the process. And Marvel,
This
of
is a
course,
huge
like
part
that's
of Marvel,
Stan.
too.
Like that's Stan, like that's
Yeah.
Stan and Bob Iger
Exactly.
and everybody like that. Those people all like were happy to be not just like in the corporate world, but also in the public eye and being like. I remember vividly watching. I guess it was Eisner. I don't remember. It was either Michael Eisner, where it's like Mickey Mouse and people interacting with him and him being like, "Hey, and him sucking at acting." I really expected Feige to be like, come on, and her to be like, no,
Hello,
like,
She-Hulk.
let her act and him be crappy at it, and her to go like, is this really like, I don't know. I thought that was be really cool. I like the idea that like I can imagine Kevin going, I don't want to do that. Make it a robot.
Yeah.
He's busy.
No, and literally oh my God, that moment where he's like, do it, change, but off camera, please, wait. It's so
Low budget.
Very
expensive.
expensive.
Or
This
that
is
musical
so
cue
very
where it's like
expensive.
the effects team has moved on to another project, and then you hear like do 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 do.
Yeah, the
For a
Wakanda theme.
second,
Yeah.
for a second, I thought the joke was gonna be the effects team is tired. They
Right.
need some time off, and
No,
I was like,
we're not
if
gonna make that
they-
reference.
we could never. There was
No.
that moment.
I do. The only issue, I love the joke where she asked about the X-Men and she brought up stuff. The only
Yeah.
problem is that really is going to date this particular show at its exact
sure.
point in
Oh,
its
absolutely it
creation.
will.
Like everything
Well, I mean,
they
I
did
had
the
that thought.
menu. The menu.
Yeah,
alone
that's what I was
will.
gonna say. The second she
Yeah.
busted out to the Disney Plus UI, I was like, well, this is gonna get old in like a month.
Listen. One of my favorite attractions at Disney World is Muppets 3D. And spoilers for Muppets 3D, but at the end of Muppets 3D,
Oh, no.
they blow a hole in the screen, and you can see the park behind it. but it's the park in 1988. So you could see like men are wearing shorts that are way too short, but in the 80s are just right, and just like. They basically blow a time hole in the screen. Back then, it might have been mind blowing for people to go, is there really a hole in the wall? Can I see the park? But now it's like, look at what look at what it looked like at Disney World in 1987 or whatever.
40 years
I like
ago.
that. There are certain projects where I don't think need to be dated. I think She-Hulk is one of those things that She-Hulk isn't, in my opinion, a show that most people are going to go back and watch 30 sometimes. No. I'm sure it's something. I think it deserves at least one rewatch if you're going to do an MCU run down the road.
I rewatched this episode actually because I got to the ending and Natalie has kind of stopped watching the MCU projects with me because they all do end the same, and I was like, you got to see this ending because it's a lot better. It changes. Even if you liked it or disliked it, it's different. Which is what I liked the most about it. They didn't just break down to her fighting Todd in a Hulk fight, and you're like, oh, so after everything she went through, she's just gonna resolve it by punching. MCU, you know.
And I'm gonna rewatch it with my friends because they haven't gotten to see it yet. Because they fell off pretty quickly in the show. They got 4 or 5 and not fell off like they don't want to watch the show, but they were no longer like, oh, it's Friday, like let's all gather up in the living room and like put She-Hulk on. They stopped doing that. So definitely worth like a rewatch. But I don't think this is gonna be something that like. In my opinion, I'll be watching Spider-Man: No Way Home for the next 10 years, like a little weirdo, and I'm gonna make an event once a year at Christmas time. I'm gonna put it on. I'm gonna see if I can rent a movie theater. Like I love that. That's a spectacle for me. So I'm glad nothing severely dates that one. Yeah. Mainly because it's Sony, so they have to use crappy Sony electronics anyways. So it never makes sense in the modern day world. Because who has a Sony Ericsson phone?
Let me get
right
my
now?
Vio out.
let me play some games on my PSP. But this one definitely is dated, but I think it works well for what it is. It's not meant to be this perfection of media masterpiece that's supposed to be, overplayed. Because I don't think we're getting rid of Jen Walters. I'm very excited.
They've announced season 2 already.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I hope before season 2 she gets to be in a movie, or like if that time.
No, they directly said she won't.
They said she won't. And I'm like, I hope they're lying because I want her to be in the movies. Like I want her to be the
When did they say this? Oh,
Kevin says they'll see you in your movie, and she turns around and goes, "Really?" And he's like, "No." And she's like, "Mean."
I'm hoping they do it for 2 reasons. One, I think it'd be fun to see her interact now that we have Deadpool eventually too. Like those two down the road, right? Like 10 years from now, having a scene together where they're so you talk to them too, right? It's like, yeah, you see them? That's crazy.
You can
they have
see
like a little
them too.
shared moment.
I like that.
But also in the giant like bombastic ending fight scene. Oh my God. I'm going to say it. This is one time I'm going to say it. Hulk CG looks so much better because it is that $1 million, like $1 billion movie TV model,
right?
As opposed to Jen's, who was created for this movie. But it's like, get her in one movie, we'll get that CGI model for the rest of the show.
Exactly.
So get her
put her in the movie. Yeah.
Talking about CGI, I want to talk about all the fun little weird Easter eggs at the ending, but let's just talk about Scar and how bad that looked.
He looks horrible.
He look fucking crazy.
And
if you don't read comic books,
you're like,
what the hell was that?
Yeah.
You know what that was? Garbage. Just straight up stupid. First of all,
that's why I think
no Hulk.
This is
don't
why
put him
I
at
think
the
this
end.
no, I don't think this episode is canon at all. I don't think anything in here happened because from the jump, like before the fourth wall break, even with the convenience of everything happening, everybody showing up, like that's still in her reality before she changed it happened.
Right.
And then it doesn't, and Matt comes back for no reason, even though he said he wouldn't.
Yep.
Titania is still there.
I love that he
Abomination
jumps
just
in
gives
out of
up.
nowhere. I love that Matt jumps in out of nowhere. There's
like, hey, I'm
nothing
here.
around him. He literally just drops out of the sky.
Yeah, where was he?
Perfect. Yeah. It's so perfect. There's nothing to fix there. That is just stupid. I love it. And also, like, there were so many angry Twitter mobs and Reddit and TikTok mobs about, like, their portrayal of Daredevil. I was like, dude, I got to watch Charlie Cox smile in the Daredevil suit.
Yeah,
and then he got to fuck She-Hulk. Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
The main question, I brought it up with my friends at TwitchCon who hadn't seen the episode yet because they're like, oh, you can spoil it for me. And they're like, was she in her Hulk form or right? This is the only question everyone asked, which I don't know.
I don't think so. I think
no los dos. They probably did both. Who cares?
Right,
It doesn't matter.
exactly.
I would assume that she wasn't when they didn't know, and then when they figured each other's identities out, then they tried a couple other things.
I have a little to no doubt. I love that he's like, I'm here for a week. I'm not part of this cast. I have my own thing to do.
Exactly. Like
he's busy.
I love the idea because Matt Murdock is such a player. I love the idea of him like going to meet her family and them thinking like things are gonna be long term. He's like, no. I live in the
just
East
a
Coast.
nice
I mean,
guy.
for those who don't
Me and
know,
Elektra and Karen.
I was like, Matt Murdock sleeps around. He's like the Manor of the Marvel universe.
He
like,
is. Read Daredevil End of Days. It's like an alternate future of Daredevil, but like he has peopled the entire Marvel universe with little Matt Murdocks. It is. Yep. Trust me.
It makes the most sense, and I think it's funny because I've recently been seeing a couple panels from She-Hulk comics where like She-Hulk is having conversation with Tony Stark in bed where it's like, I do something and I'm called a slut, you do something, you're called a player, and it's true, it's not wrong, and this show addressed it in like a really funny way where like when they're initially putting it on the giant screen last episode, and they're like, also, she's a slut.
Yes,
plays the video.
It's so funny. Yeah,
so
I loved it because it was so real and sad. Like it was just also she's a slut. Like it was great delivery because it was just like what would happen if a bunch of dipshits like this got their moment.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, oh yeah, I forgot about this part. Nah. Like well done overall.
But back to the canon talk real fast. I actually think it is kind of canon, but I don't think it's ever going to be directly referenced. I think it'll only be solidified if we actually get that movie of him going to Sakaar like the rumors are talking about.
Sure. Yeah. It's because
it's like
right
now.
Girl.
Well, yeah, but if you think about the ending of this right now,
but,
the only major change at the ending, if you think about everything that came through, is Todd did not get Hulk powers. That's the only major change. Titania being there, whatever, convenience, you know?
Yeah.
Emil getting arrested because he was doing speaking engagements. He would have been arrested because he's doing speaking engagements, not because of anything he did. And then Hulk still shows up and says that he was on Sakaar, which I loved Kevin making the reference that he wanted to have the big reveal of what Hulk's been doing.
Yeah.
And then, so then when he does it, she's like, what did I miss?
Yeah, and I also like at the end, Emil leaves with Wong to go to Karmitage. And he's like, do you have this? Do you have Wi-Fi? He goes, we have Wi-Fi. And I love that sentence.
So that's why I feel like this is in canon, because they didn't change anything. She just altered the ending so that the blood plot basically was out the window. That's basically what she did.
Yeah.
I love him. And him kind of being this pseudo Stan Lee of the TV universe, like the more recent movies, is kind of fun of like, he's in everything. He's in everything.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that we have a through line again. Have you guys, that could be a different subject for a different video.
I was like, at this point, we got to be wrapping up. We're almost at 40 minutes on this thing.
God.
Yeah. This has been our discussion about the She-Hulk finale. We enjoyed it. There's a lot that happened within this one. Overall opinion of the entire season, I'm sticking to my original review. I consider this like a B, C tier sitcom. The entire show is skippable. If you're looking for key episodes to watch, 1, 8, and 9, you'll be fine. You'll follow all the key plot points. It'll be good. I don't think it's the greatest MCU project at all, but I do think it's a good example of them moving into new territory and trying new things.
Yeah.
So, and I stand by the statement. I don't think this is this is the MCU project for everyone. This is obviously for a key demographic, and then they're hoping to catch some little ancillary people like us. But I don't think we're the key demographic for this show. So.
It's a good show. I mean, no, it wasn't a good show, but it was a good finale. And I mean, like, it did its thing, and it wasn't for me necessarily. It had its moments. I wish it were like, I wish there was more, like just more effort, more, better writing, more well-rounded characters. It was about She-Hulk through and through, and I really respect that. And I think she was a really well-rounded character, and I think she had a really good journey. And I'm happy with how that turned out. I'm happy about the future of her in the MCU. I think like out of a lot of characters that they added to the MCU, like she's one that I've been waiting for, and I wasn't disappointed.
I think this, overall for me, at the end of the day, this is like it's at its worst, it's half-baked and ugly. At its best, it is funny and just kind of a good thing to put on. I think Tatiana Maslany did a great job as She-Hulk, and They once again, the MCU, I feel like nobody can fault them for this. They nail casting, and they get charismatic people who really appreciate their roles. Obviously there's holes in that, but for the most part, they cast Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, and the list goes down from there. So yeah, I think this is a fun show. If you go in with your expectations set, especially now, like, binging it is probably the best way to watch this. Just throw it on and experience She-Hulk for like a few hours.
Yeah,
That's all you got to
Dylan's-
do. It's not that long of a show. It's 20-minute episodes.
It isn't. And Dylan said it right. Usually for MCU stuff, I'm like watching it on a TV and I'm making a big deal about it. This one, I was cooking for most of the time I was watching it. I like every time the episode on happened to be like when I cook dinner and stuff. So I'd put it on my iPad, I'd put it on the counter and I'd watch it. And I enjoyed it for what it was. And yep, there's some big holes and we could gripe about it and cry about it and be like, this is a terrible project. How dare the MCU? They get to make whatever creatively they want to, and I think they made like a pretty creative, fun project. And no, it's not the golden goose of existence, but nothing really is anymore. So like, we'll relax until we get the next big thing. But I had fun with it. This is something that I'm gonna watch again with my girlfriend. I'm probably gonna watch again with my friends so when everyone gets all caught up on it, and then we'll probably not watch it after that. But it was fun.
Does anyone know what the next MCU project is other than Black Panther? Because that's the movie. What's the next plus?
Oh,
project?
yeah.
Looks like the next thing on the slate right now is What If Season 2 early 2023. So
I was
going
gonna
to
guess What If.
with Disney Plus shows.
don't care.
That'd be the
about that.
easiest to produce right now as a cartoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because everyone's gonna be tied up with bigger projects.
No. Technically, the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday
That's
special.
what-
Yeah, that'll be
the holiday
fun.
special,
Okay, that's
yay.
the exciting
Special.
thing.
Yeah.
I was in LA when they were filming that, so they had like the whole entire building. The Chinese theater was blocked off, and they were filming it over there. So I'm very excited to see that. It's just in the middle of the summer. The Chinese theater was covered in Christmas decorations.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So that's what's coming up next, guys. So make sure you stick around. We'll be talking about Black Adam. We'll be talking about Black Panther. We'll be talking about other random open-ended discussions right here at Absolutely Marvel in DC. Let us know your thoughts of the entire season of She-Hulk down below, and we'll see you next time.